As an American living in Australia, going to the grocery store sometimes still feels like a bit of a culture shock to me. Not everything is unfamiliar, but between the random product name changes, wide variety of meat pies, and the plain absence of some of my favorite foods, one thing I've realized I miss the most about America is the snacks. It's not like there aren't nice snacks in Australia, but I'd say it's a pretty well-known fact that a lot of American food products are pretty different, to say the least, for better or for worse. But this pining for the taste of a cosmic brownie or pack of Scooby-Doo fruit snacks led me to thinking of not only the snacks that I'm missing from America, but of the very American snacks that I really miss from my childhood specifically. And I know that everyone has certain foods that they're nostalgic for from every era, but as someone who grew up in the early 2000s, I have a special place in my heart for not just the taste of discontinued food of the time, but for how interesting and weird a lot of it was conceptually. Snack companies really went to some great lengths to invent entirely new items or to reinvent existing foods to make them seem more fun to buy. From packaging gimmicks to selling less product for more money, the 90s to early 2000s were kind of unhinged at times when it came to their experimental snack foods. And because of these interesting features, a lot of products from the time just ended up being completely discontinued, if not just harder to find in later years. So consider this a tribute to all of the strange and unusual snack foods that I sometimes think about while in Australia, both the things that are still just out of my reach across the pond, and all of the fallen heroes across the discontinued snack Rainbow Bridge. As someone who had a lot of energy as a kid and always had to keep their hands busy, I knew I could always rely on a certain subgenre of snack foods to keep me entertained. Designed to be fun to eat, products in this subgenre had all of the best elements of a tactile toy in the form of an edible snack. Whenever I think of the marketing gimmick of food that you can play with, I always think of the various Betty Crocker fruit products and the many forms that they took. Whether you liked your 1% of actual fruit in a sheet with different shapes, in a sheet rolled up, in a long strip rolled up, in a different thinner long strip rolled up, in a different thin long strip twisted up into a fun shape, or in a corn syrup filled little pouch, there was a lot to choose from. A good amount of these are still available in the States, but they're still worth a mention because I find it so funny that all of these products were or are essentially the same thing, but only presented in a different package. They were all vaguely fruit related, though definitely not an actual fruit source, no matter what the carefully worded advertisements said, or how big the fruit heads in their TV commercials were. But most of all, a large part of what made them appealing is how they had to be unraveled or peeled, or had some super cool feature like tongue tattoos or being able to be stacked. Look, they stick together! Doesn't that make you want to buy them more? And it wasn't just limited to corn syrupy fruit flavored snacks. This physical or plaything aspect was present in a lot of other foods too, where most of what made them great was that they were fun to eat. Trix yogurt tasted pretty okay, but it was advertised as being a unique yogurty experience with swirling colors, which was the main sell of the product. And if you didn't want to use a spoon to stir your yogurt around until it turned a slightly upsetting combined color, then you didn't even need one with Danimals Crush Cups, the world's coolest and most inefficient way to eat yogurt. Perfect for if you love a container that crinkles obnoxiously, and for at least a quarter of the product to remain indefinitely stuck at the bottom of the cup, no matter how easy Zach and Cody made it look to slurp up. Lunchables were also an example of a snack that had a physical element to them. They weren't as cool as crushable yogurt, as fun as that is, but they definitely had this sort of DIY aspect to a lot of the meals that instantly made them beat out a boring regular packed lunch. These were the meal kits before meal kits were trendy. Forget HelloFresh, check out Lunchables Fresh. Full of preservatives, a lot of salt, and with a Capri Sun in every box, Lunchables really are one of the foods to exist, all delivered straight to your door. This is not a real product, but if it does become a thing sometime soon, you'll know who they stole it from. Just waiting for my sponsored promo code. Anyway, as far as actual Lunchables went, when I was younger, the DIY element definitely gave them some fun points in my book. While everyone else was eating some boring, pre-assembled Uncrustable, I felt superior with my Lunchables in hand. Who cares how much sodium they might have had, or that eating one subjected you to consuming cold, clammy chicken nuggets or raw mini pizzas? The act of epically dunking those chicken nuggets, sprinkling the cheese on those pizzas, or stacking a variety of overly salty cheeses and meats on some crackers clearly made up for whatever the taste experience lacked. I mean, everyone knows that stacking is cool, remember? If the Dunkers ketchup in your Lunchable wasn't your kind of fun though, then there was also the Easy Squirt ketchup made by Heinz that promised a form of edible art and a general aversion to tomato products after eating a hot dog with Shrek ketchup on it. And in a similar, less upsetting vein, there was Juicy Drop Pops that also gave kids the opportunity to squeeze out colorful goop for fun. The premise here is kind of cool, I guess, the idea of creating your own level of sourness, but I'm gonna be honest, I just drank all of the sour juice on its own and kind of disregarded the rest of the candy when I was younger, so I think the concept was lost on me. While a lot of these products seem kind of weird and over the top in retrospect, maybe I'm not giving them enough credit. A huge part of building any brand is, of course, finding only the best products through trial and error. But even with that in mind, it's still just wild to think about all of these items that tended to prioritize the experience and look of a food item instead of, I don't know, maybe the way it tastes. Though I guess I understand, because I didn't really think about if something like a Crush Cup tasted good or not when I was younger, because I was preoccupied with how cool and trendy I felt by using it. That, and if the fateful package I pulled it from would let me win the Danimal sweepstakes. If you ever wondered what happened with that whole thing, a creator I love to watch named Ashley Norton has a great video covering that infamous yogurt-themed mystery. But even a questionable sweepstakes and an impractical yet crinkly package design couldn't save Crush Cups from the kiss of discontinuance, and other products like Easy Squirt and a few of the Betty Crocker's wacky bunch of fruit snacks also suffered a similar fate. Concerning the multicolored ketchup, I think its namesake alone speaks to its downfall, never mind the unsettling concept of blue, green, and purple tomato product, no matter how creative it may be. And for the various twisty, stringy fruit snacks, I'm actually not too sure. I mean, like we covered, there are a lot of its fun-shaped cousins still remaining in stores today. I don't know why a roll-up is more marketable than a string. Oh, right. I mean, obviously. Sugary fruit snack in string form? Are you serious? This is getting out of hand. I think that's a little too goofy, a little too abstract, like that SpongeBob episode that gave me an existential crisis as a kid. And the same could be said about stackers that fall under the same category and brand as the other different shaped fruit products, but I think this product had even more of a disadvantage than only being too silly and fun-shaped. The biggest gripe I had with this snack, even as a kid, and that I still think about now, is that it was clearly just fruit roll-ups and marketed as such, but it was just less product. It never felt like enough to actually eat, and I don't know if I was an outlier, but I did not care that they could be stacked together. I think you can do that with a lot of things. It seems the only good thing about stackers is that they were also eventually discontinued. But that was unfortunately not the first nor the last type of snack food that was the epitome of less is more and was more expensive because of it. Hershey's Swoops was one product that seemed really cool because it's got a neat shape that can be stacked together. Just like that other one. And looks like the candy version of Pringles. But there were only 6 candy Pringles per container, which is a significantly less amount of chocolate compared to just eating a regular candy bar, and the novelty of a sick new product faded away pretty quickly after finishing a pack in under 2 minutes. And speaking of Hershey, they did this same sort of less is more gimmick with another product that came out around 2010, and for some reason I have carried this grudge with me about it since then. A new version of the classic Hershey bar called Air Delight was advertised in this chocolate-filled wonderland of a commercial, really highlighting how amazing of an experience it was to eat chocolate enhanced by bubbles. And being an 11-year-old, I fell for it. I asked my mom to buy me this amazing new creation at the store. I tore open the wrapper, and you know what? I was met with a lot of air, but not a lot of delight. It was just a candy bar in a smaller size with holes in it. There was no magical, airy experience to be had because its only difference to a regular Hershey bar was that it had less product for more money. I didn't even really like Hershey's chocolate that much to begin with, so I don't know why I built this up in my head so much, but needless to say, I was very disappointed and very distrusting of advertisers as a whole after this. I know there are other aerated chocolates still out there now, and don't worry, I despise those too, just on principle, but I feel like Hershey should be called out specifically for betraying me. Candy in general was always a big gimmick-heavy market at the time, usually with a lot of products being just reinvented versions of existing candy, and not even necessarily in new styles or new flavors, but just the existing formula in a new shape. This wasn't exactly a trope that's exclusive to the 2000s, but candies like Butterfinger BBs, Reese's Bites, and Hershey's Kissables are stuck in my childhood memory as being just slightly altered versions of an original product that were also eventually discontinued. Though, at least they weren't just putting holes in their candy and calling it a new invention. Unlike somebody. And these new, but not really new, candies were closely followed by the similar trend of revamping existing products into cool new to-go versions that were marketed as being great for lunchboxes or a quick snack, though they usually just tasted slightly off and weren't necessarily any more travel-friendly compared to the original. I remember when these Oreo dipping sticks were first introduced as a lunchbox staple, though they could easily be replaced by a much less involved actual Oreo cookie, and these Pop-Tarts Go-Tarts were, I guess, a slightly more convenient size, but they never tasted quite right, so were they even worth it? I will say that Grips were the outlier here, as they were a snack that somehow tasted better as tiny little pieces inside a shiny to-go pouch. Even more than on-the-go and rehashed snacks though, I feel like the 2000s was the time for lots of different types of gum. I don't know what about the turn of the century made gum producers really start to take charge, but there was always some interesting and not like the other gums product to try around this time. Sometimes it was just fun packaging and marketing, like the Ouch gum that came in a Band-Aid-like tin, or Fruit Stripes gum that had stripes and tattoos on it for a double whammy. Sometimes it was an unconventional shape, like gum in tape form, powdered form, or shredded form, to simulate the healthy kid habit of chewing tobacco. But if it wasn't the marketing or strange shape, it was a new flavor. Forget boring traditional gum flavors like mint and cinnamon. During the gum renaissance of the early 2000s, there was plenty more to choose from to really spice up your bubble blowing. Skittles got an upgrade from candy to gum. Hershey's tried to redeem themselves after the aerated candy incident with a chocolate-flavored gum, and I hated that too. Extra decided to turn dessert into a sugar-free, endlessly chewed, artificially flavored disappointment. And there was even gum that was stacked up in hip and trendy layers. Stacked. Why must everything be stacked? Trident Layers is still around today, but I think it's been forgotten just how much it was hyped up when it first came out around 2010. Maybe it was the aesthetically pleasing fruit on the package, or maybe it never really was the gum renaissance, but the great stackening, and this just perfectly hit that layered market. Whatever it was, I remember being almost as intrigued by this new product as Hershey's Air Delights. Almost. Can't fool me twice. This product was a lot less of a letdown though, so it gets a pass in my book. Something that seems to transcend a Renaissance period or era of time in general, though, is the infinite amount of new and unusual Oreo products that seem to endlessly be produced. There was a trend sort of relative to the 2000s of giving everything a s'mores flavor, from goldfish to cereal to crackers, and please, can someone let me know if they had these s'mores cookies specifically, because I dream about them often, and I know they've been discontinued, but they deserve a proper remembrance. But Oreo didn't and doesn't still just flavor things in a sparse coating of cookie dust and call it a day. And I don't just mean the normal stuff like an ice cream flavor or even all of the questionable cookie varieties that exist. I'm talking about the cakes, the straws, the dipsticks, the cereal, the caramel creams, and even the useless 100-calorie depressing hexagons. And again, this is not a new phenomenon, nor do I think it will end anytime soon. I just felt like I couldn't talk about all of these snack food staples and marketing gimmicks without mentioning one of the most prevalent cookies with one of the most diverse snack portfolios. And Oreos seem to be available almost anywhere you go, so whether I want to or not, it seems that I will be unable to evade them even when traveling thousands of miles between countries. So clearly, there are some snacks I miss more than others, whether that be because I'm substituting shapes and pods for them while in Australia, or because they were tragically ripped from my childhood hands. The good news is that despite a lot of weird snack foods being discontinued due to poor sales or such a strong boycott by a single 11-year-old that they had to hide their products away in shame, in recent years it's become somewhat of a trend to reintroduce some discontinued foods. Retired snacks like Dunkaroos, 3D Doritos, and Oreo Cakesters have been making a comeback. While it may seem silly for some people to get excited about some overly processed sugary garbage that never really tastes as good as you remember, I for one can clearly relate, as maybe you can tell by the entire video I've made about those exact same sugary processed foods. I know this stuff can't be good for me, but while I continue to chase the elusive high of the last pack of Yogos I had in 2011, I still hope that any of my favorite discontinued snack foods will be the ones that are reintroduced next. A huge thank you to Daniel E. from ABQ, Joe Cheeseman, Brett Morgan, Bunzo, Dylan Webb, Hannah and Allie, Hayden Campbell, Johan Ake, Kevin Evans, Mark Kent, Mr. Pants, Emily, Oliver E., Paper Sam, Pixel Puppy, Sarah, The Goomba Mattress, Theodore Nicolawilius, Unan Almandor, and the rest of my patrons for supporting me. Introducing new Dream Jelly Bites, snack-sized bites of sugar-coated YouTube content that's aerated for more fun. It doesn't really taste like jelly, but it sure does feel like a dream.